We've also been preparing to go to Quartzsite, Arizona.
Quartzsite is this little town on the border of Arizona and California where BLM land comes like right up to the city, and so it's a great place for people in RVs to go and camp for free or very cheaply for long periods of time. And during the month of January there's this huge RV gathering, and actually not just in January, it's for the whole winter, but lots of RVs descend upon this little town. It swells to like over 1 million in population from about 3,500. And so we're planning to go out there to hang out with a lot of people and
spend 2 or 3 weeks completely off-grid on the BLM land. BLM is Bureau of Land Management land. It's public land that a lot of times you're allowed to park on.
Yep.
And we're going to be completely off-grid. And
so no hookups.
When you don't have any hookups and you're in an RV, we call it boondocking. Yes. And this week, in this video, we wanted to talk about what it takes to prepare to take an RV, which a lot of them are already pretty well set up to go off-grid, but what it takes to prepare for longer-term boondocking.
When you're not going to be hooked up to anything, you really have to think about your consumable resources, and one of those is water. So we're planning to spend about 2-3 weeks out there. We have to make sure that our water tank is full. If you haven't already and you're planning to go boondocking, you want to make sure that that tank has been sanitized.
If you don't use it a lot,
yes,
make sure to sanitize it because they can grow stuff in there. We use ours pretty regularly, and we're hooked up. We fill it with chlorinated chlorinated city supplies a lot, so if that's the case, you usually don't have to worry about sanitization.
Yep. But then, you know, if you don't drink out of your freshwater tanks, you also have to make sure that you bring plenty of drinking water with you. We've got a couple of 5-gallon collapsible jugs. They're easy to store, they're lightweight, they don't take up very much space, so we always make sure that we've got those full so we have plenty of drinking water with us when we
also use those types of jugs to use as portable water tanks, so that if we are getting low on our fresh water, we can take a handful of those jugs into town, fill them up with the water from a supply, bring them out, and put them into our freshwater tank. And I did a video on how we fill our tanks with that earlier this year. I'll put a link to that at the end of this video.
So one of the other things you have to consider with your water is, well, what if you fill up your tanks? For us, we've got 100 gallons fresh water, and we've got
75 gallon gray tank, which is your sinks and your shower.
So if for some reason, you know, through that we have to refill up our freshwater tank, for some reason our gray tank gets full and we don't really have a place to do something with it, we have a portable wastewater disposal tank that we have with us that we can empty some of our gray tank into and then take that to wherever we need to dispose of it properly.
We usually don't have to do that because when you have your freshwater tank, if you have a full freshwater tank, a lot of times a portion of it's going to go into the black tank, which is your toilet, and then a portion into the gray tank, and usually even if you drain that out, they kind of like even out and you won't fill up either of those tanks. But it is nice to have, and we have used it a handful of times, the portable gray water tank disposal. So another thing you need to consider that you'll use up is propane, and in our coach, propane runs our fridge, it runs our stove and our oven, it also runs our hot water heater, and it runs our furnace. So propane for us is critical to have your tanks topped off before you go out. Or if you're going to be in really cold weather and you're probably going to burn a lot, these things are not very efficient at heating with those furnaces. So maybe take an auxiliary tank so that you have even more propane, or know where you can go to get more to stay warm and keep utilizing all the functions of your coach. Some coaches use other methods. The big diesel coaches a lot of times will use diesel to actually heat, and electric for most of the other things, but a lot of RVs use propane.
Another thing you want to consider, since you're not going to have electrical hookups, is what are you going to do about electricity?
Yeah, and we don't, we're not going camping. We're trying to live off-grid as normally as we possibly can, and we require electricity because we work on the computers a lot, and you also need it for lights and to run all of your other appliances and electronics in the RV.
So there's two main ways that you can do it. You can either provide your electricity through a generator, or if you have a solar setup, that also works to provide your electricity. We have a generator that works well for us.
We'd love to have solar. It's
Yes.
quiet and beautiful, but a lot of times it doesn't make sense for RV because the payback isn't there. Unless you boondock all the time, solar's just kind of a nice to have. Generators are relatively cheap. And they work pretty well. We use a little Honda 2000 watt generator, which is crazy efficient and really doesn't cost us very much to fill up with gasoline. It runs all day on a gallon, and we also make use of our batteries a lot. We have two big 6-volt batteries that make 12 volts, just like your system in your car, and we use an inverter for running our computers and other electronics when we are not running the generator. So we'll run the generator for a part of the day, and then for the rest of the day we use our inverter, which looks like this. It's just a thing that we connect to some battery terminals. We have some connections here in the coach, and we just run some extension cords to our computers. It's not the most convenient. We'd like to build one into our system so that our plugs are just lit up, but that's a future upgrade.
Yeah, and the current setup works for us, even though you have to just, walk over a bunch of extension cords.
There's a lot of different inverter types. I will put a link to one that I recommend for this type of thing in our description below, but I'll do a video on inverter types in the future.
If you're planning to boondock in heat, you're going to have to consider what kind of generator you have. A lot of generators aren't powerful enough to run AC units to keep it cool enough in your RV to be comfortable. So definitely have to consider that as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of things you can do to keep your RV cool, and that's for another video. But if you intend to run your air conditioner, make sure to have a generator that can do it.
Yes.
So another big thing for us is connectivity. We work on the road, so we have to maintain connectivity, and if you need it for work or just for pleasure even, a lot of times a cell network is the only thing that's going to provide you with proper connectivity.
And if you're out boondocking, chances are you may or may not be in very good cell service
First,
range.
before you go, check the cell service maps. There's some good apps out there, and the maps themselves, and look whether you're going to be within good cell service. But if not,
then you're probably going to want a cell booster.
Yeah, we, around the time of this video, hopefully soon, I'm going to have a video on how we boost our cellular, and it works very well, and we highly recommend having a booster to increase your cellular coverage in your RV or even just on one device.
Yes, even when you're out boondocking on crazy out of the way, but BLM land.
We have been working in our office with some of the most beautiful views, miles and miles and miles from civilization before, and it's actually kind of fun to do that.
Yes. Another thing you might want to consider if you're going out boondocking and out and away from, like we said, civilization, is to prepare food-wise. Make sure that, all of your needs are stocked and you have plenty of food, because you might not have a grocery store or a, fresh produce or anything like that nearby enough to make sense of replenishing your stores. Another thing to consider around food and in the interest of conservation of water is to pre-wash all your fruits and vegetables before you go out boondocking, so that you don't have to use up your existing water supplies to do that.
Yeah, think about other things that you might need to use water for. You're not going to be washing your truck with your water in your tanks, or in our case, we actually just bathed our dogs.
Yes.
Because we're not going to waste water. They take a lot of water because of the fur and when we're out boondocking. So we bathed them before we went.
Yes. So just kind of think about all those things ahead of time. What are you going to need water for? And do that while maybe you still are all hooked up or have access to refill your tanks before you go out for an extended stay.
Another really great idea when planning to go boondocking is to really know where you're going. We always use the satellite imagery on like Google Maps to zoom in and figure out what does the area around you look like? What kind of terrain are you going to be in? And it can be extremely helpful when figuring out where you might go or what obstacles you might encounter when getting there. So ultimately, to make a longer term boondocking stay work, you really need to think about conservation and doing everything you can to minimize your water use, minimize your electric use, minimize your propane use. And although that's a topic that we could go on and on and on about, we'll save that for another video. But with conservation, all of these consumable resources that you bring along, you can really make it last a pretty long time.
Yep.
I think we've been off-grid for about a month before. Yeah, I think about a month on just taking all of our stuff and, kind of one go at it. So those are some of the things that we're thinking about this week as we prepare to go boondocking, and we're excited. And boondocking, a lot of times for us, it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It can be kind of difficult, but it's also really fun, and you're as close to nature as you can possibly be and still have all the comforts of home. And to us, that's a really neat experience.
Yeah. Even though quartzsite, it's probably not going to be so much close to nature. It's going to be more like a city of RVs.
City in the desert. But we are excited to go there for sure.
We're very excited. It's going to be a lot of socialization, a lot of collaboration, lots of new cool people, and we're thinking we're going to have quite a bit of fun.
So thanks for joining us this week on our Mondays with the Mortons show. If you have any other questions for us, feel free to leave them in the comments below or shoot us an email, mortonsonthemove@gmail.com.
Make sure to subscribe. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram and our website, mortonsonthemove.com. And we will see you next week from Quartzsite.
Bye.
Bye.